Behind me, you see the car that is maybe third in the Toyota lineup. When you start with an Aygo, move on to a Yaris, but at some point outgrow it, you end up with the Corolla. My name is Peter, this is an Autogefühl video, and the Toyota Corolla Cross here in beige is an interesting car to review, I think, because there is quite a lot to choose in this category to begin with, but also within the Corolla lineup. You have the normal Corolla hatchback, and you also have the touring version that we drove last year that I personally quite like. And this is another option within the same model, so that's actually quite interesting. First of all though, we have to talk about the color. This is sort of a beige spec, which I think could be really boring, but it also has a little bit of chic to it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below if this would be your colors or if you would go for something a little bit more funky. Now, there are quite a few updates for this Corolla Cross. I'm not going to mention all of them, but we're going to go over a few key ones. First things first, here the grille. We now have this honeycomb structure here on the middle part of it, which I think looks quite nice, and they also didn't make the mistake to sort of pull it fully through all the way down to the bottom. So I think that's nice and functional and still looks like a normal car. Also, you can see the new headlights and of course the light strip going from side to side. Countdown on how long it's going to take before Toyota starts to illuminate the logo as well, because that's the whole trend these days, right? All around though, I think it's a nice front, and if we move to the side of the car, you really get an idea of the profile. I think this is really just, it's a car. Nothing is really going wrong, but also nothing is really extremely exciting. It's a nice functional piece of equipment, which is nice. I kind of like that. And I think you have a good companion here in the size of the vehicle, as we'll see on the inside later too. It's very functional. You can fit your whole family in here. There's enough boot space. It's all around, it's just a normal car. And I think if you're shopping in this category and if you like Toyota, that is something that will probably resonate with you. The taillights are also new. They're now this design. I don't know how much of a Toyota connoisseur you guys are, but I think you have to park them side by side, this one and the old version, to see the differences really. And we also have a few interesting aero fins here for some extra efficiency, because this car is really efficient. The rear here though I think is nice and clean, and also again exactly what you want. A no nonsense rear end of a car with a quite large rear window, which is very much appreciated, especially with the wiper. The video from the Renault Megane, for example, but also from the Porsche EX, the Volvo EX30, showed, very tiny rear windows. Not the case here. Plenty of visibility throughout the car. We've got a little spoiler up here for some extra airflow, and of course the roof racks, so you can also put a ski box on the roof if you so desire. Because if we look at the boot right away, we do have a little over 400 liters of boot space, so that is excellent and very usable. And I would almost say if you stuff this to the brim, it is enough for your ski holiday, like I always like to make the comparison for. Certainly enough for a small holiday with the family. It is not the biggest configuration you can get, by the way, because this is the big engine and also the executive trim. And then you get a JBL speaker system and the subwoofer is over there, so that eats up into your boot space a little bit. So if you want maximum space, don't go for this version. We also have to talk about this little flap here, which is your boot cover. Nothing really crazy, but it's not a shelf. And that obviously means that for the keen-eared among you, there will be a bit of extra noise coming from the wheel arches back here. Personally, it hasn't bothered me at all in the week that I have this car now, but there is no denying that there will be extra sound coming from the rear. Which is, something to consider, because Toyota has especially done a lot for sound management in the front of the car. So if it's really quiet there and you are very sensitive to those kind of things, then there is a bit of extra noise coming from back here. Now, I mentioned the different versions. This is the executive version. There's obviously a variety of trim levels available depending on how many toys you want and what your budget is. Powertrain wise, there's two options, the 140 and the 180. Unsurprisingly, with 140 and 180 horsepower. This is the 181, and then you get a 2-liter petrol engine with the hybrid system. Now obviously there will be a price difference between the two, and the power difference I think is significant enough to really think about that choice, because 180 horsepower, as we'll see in a bit when we start driving, is enough to drive very pleasantly. I don't know if 140 is really going to be enough. The car will be slightly lighter, but it's just a small amount of horsepower. And I'm sure it's all possible, but I think the enjoyment of driving with a little bit more power definitely weighs heavy here. But we're first going to do the inside, do the cockpit tour and show you what's going on there, and then we're going to take the car for a drive. Then we have to do the cockpit tour of this Corolla Cross, and I have to say it is a very pleasant Toyota cockpit, meaning that it is all buttons, it is no touchy swipey, and it is modern and functional, and that is something I quite like. It's also a very ergonomic cockpit. Everything is where you think it is and everything does what you think it will do. And that sounds very obvious, but it is actually very difficult to design a cockpit that is ergonomically sound. There are a few points of attention though, mainly here in the middle part of the cockpit, but that we'll get to in a second. Starting here on the left, we have a lot of blackness actually throughout the whole cockpit and throughout the whole car. We'll see in the back later too. It is all slightly different shades of black, so not much in terms of visual design with different color combinations, and we also don't have a panoramic roof, so it does get very dark in here. Luckily there's enough glass here and also in the rear, so that is fine. But it is, yeah, in a way a bit monotonous color-wise, which could be boring. It could also be calming depending on which end of the fence you fall. We have normal buttons for locking the doors, window controls, and a little joystick for your mirrors. Excellent, that is how you want it. We have a bit of texture here on the door. It is not rock hard plastic, it is soft touch, but it is also not squidgy or anything. It's not super soft. It does get a bit softer as you go down for your elbows here, also here on the center armrest. The steering wheel is very simple and Toyota. Buttons on the left for your systems and your screen, buttons on the right for your cruise control, and we got some volume and media buttons here on the left and the right as well. The steering wheel is very slippery for some reason. I don't know if it is because this car has only done 1,647 kilometers so far, and it still needs to be rubbed in a little bit. But I noticed a few times that it's not slipping out of your hand or anything, but it is a very slippery steering wheel. Although I'm sure that will be better over time. We got normal stalks as well for your lights on the left and for your wipers on the right. So all is well there. Looking through the steering wheel, we have Toyota's driver's display, which can be a bit busy and intimidating when you first get into the car. But of course, when you own this car, you're going to set it just so that it has all the information that you want. But it is busy, and also things like the driving aids and stuff, you have to go through that Toyota menu with the tiny icons and the abbreviations. So it can be a bit cumbersome to operate once you first get the car. You do get used to it, obviously, and especially with the driving aids, turning it off, it becomes muscle memory at some point. You're like, oh, 3 taps, two down, 2 right, and so on. But yeah, there's a lot going on also in terms of colors and all the gauges that you see, so that does take a bit of getting used to. All the other information is on the central screen, 10.5 inch. This is the new Toyota Way. It's nothing that's going to blow you away, especially not when you've seen the Chinese modern systems, but it is very functional, it's very simple, it's easy to see, easy to read, easy to find whatever you need. So, hey, that rhymes. But it is just fine. It'll do everything you want it to do, but also nothing more. So be that as it may, it is a fine system, I think, for a car like this. Although you could always argue you want more performance, more graphics, more everything. But, it's fine. It works well. What also works well is the manual ventilation control underneath. So that is also great. It's throughout the whole car, actually. Manual operation also for the amount of air you want. Super simple and great. Then we get to this piano black strip around the vents and around the klima control. That's not so great. Don't know why this is in cars still, especially in new cars like this. I don't understand. So the klima control is perfect with buttons and real things to twist and turn. That is absolutely everything we want. But this area here that you constantly touch is piano black, so it will be permanently smudgy. And I'm convinced that in a year or so from now, when you touch this with your ring, with hard nails, with whatever might be on your hands, this is also going to scratch. Not to mention it is permanently dusty, which looks gross when the sun hits it at a certain angle. And it is reflective as well. So there's no argument for this material. It doesn't even look nice. And it gets even worse because this whole center console is even more of that stuff. And it is the same thing, constantly smudgy, constantly dusty from all the stuff that falls out of your hair and from your clothing. Your fingers are always a bit fatty, especially when you're eating something in the car. It's just a constant nightmare. So this is a mistake for sure. And if I would own this car, I would immediately put some kind of sticker on it from Amazon. The center console itself is fine. We have wireless charging pads. We have a few buttons here for your driving modes and your cameras and so on. We have auto hold and a parking button, and we have a normal gear stick, I suppose. Everything in one line though. So, you know, nothing really going wrong there. But this upper part, where all these buttons and the gear stick are, is like a little bit of a table that's standing on top of this middle tunnel. In itself, no problems there. But this table is slightly wider than the tunnel it's standing on. Also not an issue per se, but when I put my foot on the gas and lean against the center console, it is hitting exactly the side of my knee at a spot that is annoying. And of course I can raise or lower my seat slightly, but I don't want to have to adjust my seat because there's something in the way. I just want to have my seat adjusted to the best view out. And on longer journeys, I find that it becomes annoying that it's sort of pressing against my knee the whole time. So that's a weird ergonomic choice. And it could obviously be that I have weirdly sized legs or something, but I cannot imagine that is very comfortable for anybody else. So that's interesting that this has not come up in any kind of user testing, I think. Then we have 2 buttons for the seat heating underneath that feel like they come from a tractor. They do work all as well, but yeah, that could have been a bit more elegant maybe here in the row of Klima controls. 2 cup holders, and the armrest can open as well. 12-volt socket is in there. And we also have a normal glove box with a normal hinge, so no buttons in the screen or any nonsense like that. And that is the cabin. Simple, ergonomic and functional, and no nonsense with swiping where you don't need to swipe, just real buttons and real things to interact with tactile stuff. So that is great. The seats are actually quite good as well. I fit in them with my enormously broad shoulders, so that is good. And I know you guys joke about it in the comments sometimes, but I really don't fit into a lot of normal car seats. So it's nice that I fit. That said, they don't provide that much support. It's not a rally drifting car or anything, but there's not that much support here on the side. There is also quite enough adjustability in the seat. They are electric here on the driver's side and manual on the passenger side. And all round it is a good place to be, good view out, good view through the car as well. In the rear view mirror, I can easily see out the ample sized rear window. The few cars recently that we've driven have like tiny rear windows, like the Renault Megane, for example, which can be cumbersome. Here I have plenty of view out. So all is well here. Obviously, we got to do a little bit of driving in this Corolla Cross as well, and that is of course the starting point to talk about the powertrain. We got the full hybrid 180 underneath us, like I already told you outside. There's also a 140 version available, but this 180 is excellent. And there's several factors involved here. The first one is that it is a complete no-brain system in the sense that the car will do everything for you if you want. This is a car you can get in and start driving and you don't even really have to think about it, and you're still having a very pleasant powertrain that's also very economical. If I look at my readout at the moment, in the week that I've had this car, I've done an average of 5.1 liters per 100 kilometer, and that is a combination of city driving, highway driving, and basically everything I do in a given week, with taking the kids to school and to sports and activities, having some meetings in and around town and so on. And that's without even doing any kind of serious hypermiling. So that is already excellent. That's diesel values of consumption, so that's great. On top of that, you can still play with the car a little bit. You can, of course, adjust your driving style slightly in terms of rolling and coasting. There is an EV button down there to activate the EV only mode if you want to drive purely electric around town, for example. So this is a figure that can be even better if you try. But just getting in and going, this is what I've done mostly this week. I already get those kind of consumption figures, so that is excellent. The second point is that this 180 horsepower is very pleasant for the vehicle. You often hear me say in reviews, especially for hybrid cars that are around the 150 horsepower mark, that it is totally drivable, but nothing more than that. And this extra 30 horsepower might not sound like a lot, but it really is. It really adds to the drivability of this car, especially in traffic and especially here on the highway. Because that little bit of extra power gives you so much extra ability to respond to situations around you and also to create situations before they even happen. And then you have to think things like obviously merging onto the highway or into traffic, but also making space for a truck that needs to get in between, making room for people to move around, creating a situation for yourself where you don't get bunched up with a bunch of other vehicles. And that is so much more pleasurable to drive that way with that little bit of extra power than you would otherwise. And it really makes a difference. I notice in cars with more performance, my own car, for example, has almost 500 horsepower, which is obviously a different category of power. But in general, a bit more performance just allows for a much more relaxed driving experience because you know you have more ability to respond. And that's really nice. And that's why I think that the 140 version of this one, albeit slightly lighter, might be a bit underpowered in terms of what you can do with it. I'm not saying that it's undrivable, and honestly I haven't driven it actually, but I can imagine that, yeah, it is still adequate, but nothing more than that like it usually is with that kind of power level. Now, by no means this is some kind of race monster, obviously, because it is in the end only 180 horsepower, but it's very pleasant to drive in general, both in town as on the highway, as on sort of in between roads like we are on now. And it's just pleasant. And I think that is a summary for the whole car. Nothing in here on the inside and also not on the outside will blow you away at any point. There's no feature in here, no standout thing that you're like, wow, this is something I totally didn't expect and this is the reason I'm buying this car. I think the sum of all parts is why you buy this car. Everything here is very Toyota, so it's all very well done, well thought out, functional, tactile, but nothing stands out. But if you put it all together, it is very pleasant. It's a vehicle that you get in and you're like, okay, I can totally drive this without thinking too much. Everything does what I think it does. Everything is where I think it is. And that makes it so easy to recommend a car like this for basically anybody that's just looking for a vehicle to move his family around. Look no further. And then it has all the space in the back. It has a lot of space in the boot, so you can drive your whole family around in comfort and style. And again, it's nothing shocking. I mean, there's cars with more space in the back, there's cars with bigger boots, but if you put it all together, I think Toyota has a real good car on its hands here. And I think the fact that this is a car that you can recommend to anybody from your parents to people with a small family makes a really strong case for the vehicle as well. And I think Toyota does that really well. Building cars that are solid, reliable, easy to use, easy to live with, cheap to run, economic to drive. There's just so many strong points. And that's even before you start adding up things like the 10-year warranty, for example, that Toyota offers. The bulletproofness of basically anything that Toyota builds. Because those things are important too. Like, people don't want to mess with maintenance all the time. And people are actually thinking about resale value at some point in the buying process as well. And if you can buy this car new, drive it for 7 years and still resell it with 3 years of factory warranty, that's a really strong case to make as well. So is there really nothing to complain about in this car? Well, not really. I mean, you can always make the case that it's a bit boring in here, especially with all these different shades of black and gray. It could use a little bit of color, I think, like maybe some stitching or maybe a panel that's slightly different color. That would be nice for visual appeal. But obviously, this is also still a car made to a price point, and keeping everything unified that way makes it cheaper to produce. So there's something to be said for that too. I would really like a panoramic roof. That is nice to also liven up the interior a little bit. In the front, it is light enough because the windows are quite big, easily enough light coming through. But in the back, no, it's not claustrophobic or anything, but it's also not super light. And then of course there's the piano black, and like I mentioned, that little edge here from the center console that can get annoying if your legs get in the way. But other than that, yeah, strong car. A nice car, pleasant to drive in, sitting here as well, like I'm comfortable. Everything is within arm's reach, literally, and it's just a pleasant vehicle to travel around in. And I think that is what it is. It's just a pleasant vehicle to be in. And that's a strong thing. And with that, we get to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Let me also know in the comments below if you would pick this Corolla Cross, if you would pick the Corolla station wagon that we drove last year. That's the one I would pick actually. Or if you would pick the regular Corolla hatchback. It's interesting to know how that split is between the three models, and let me know which one you guys would prefer. For now, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!